What is up, you guys? Welcome back to HBH Podcast. Today we have a special one because I have a guest on the show that hasn't been on the show before, and we're talking about the newest horror film, Longlegs, from Oz Perkins. Pretty excited about this one. Just seen it today, and I have a little bit to say about it. It's one of those things where you see the movie and it takes time for it to process. So I'm still kind of getting my feelings gathered about this movie. But I am joined with Cancel Happiness. If you guys don't know Cancel Happiness, you should. I will leave his channel linked in the description. And with that being said, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, honestly. I'm very excited to talk about this movie with you and tell them a little bit about your channel, man. I mean, I want all my subs to go over there and sub to you as well because I know you have some great content over there. So what do you do on your channel, man?
I mostly cover true crime cases, dark content like that in general, but I like to do a little bit of everything on my channel. So I'll never know what I might post. It might be one day true crime and something completely different the next day. So
yeah, absolutely, man. I love true crime, and I've seen a few of your videos, and they're very well done. So if you guys are into true crime, definitely go over there and check out his channel.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no problem. So, with that being said, let's get into what everyone's here for. How did you feel about Longlegs?
Honestly, I might have a different take than most people I've heard, but I was actually kind of disappointed overall, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
And like I'm a big believer in like atmosphere, especially a first time viewing a movie. Like if the
Yeah.
atmosphere is not right, then the viewing experience can be bad. And
Mhm.
so with that being said, the lights in the movie theater were broken. So it was broad daylight in
Ooh.
there. Yeah, the air conditioning wasn't working right on the day we went, so it was hot.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, so it was a little, and it was very busy, which I wasn't surprised about. Which
Yeah.
I think watching a horror movie with a lot of people is better a lot of the times than alone. But
Absolutely.
but there were people on their phones, people talking, and so that's not really the fault of the movie. So I'm trying to
Yeah,
like cut that out of how I think about it. But I think an
exactly.
issue with it was I had it so overhyped in my head. Like I had it so built up in my head that it was going to be this revolutionary, like life-changing horror movie.
Yeah,
And I basically put it in a position where it was bound to fail, like it
exactly.
couldn't live up to the hype I had built for it. It's not bad by any means. It's definitely
Yeah.
well worth a watch. Yeah, I was just overall a little bit disappointed by it. So
Okay, gotcha. It's kind of funny. It's not the same situation for me. Like the lights were out. There actually was like barely anybody in the theater when I went today. So it's kind of like
oh,
the
really?
opposite. But it's funny because my uncle went with us and dude was literally sleeping during the movie. I mean, he was like snoring and everything. And like this lady in front of us is literally looking up at me and my uncle and is like, "Why is this dude snoring?" So I'm over here like nudging him, trying to get him to wake up because it's like, dude, you can't snore during this. You know how like there's points in the movie where it's like pretty quiet,
Oh
and like
yeah,
it would
dead
get
quiet.
super quiet, and he's over there like, and I'm like, no, you can't do this. So yeah, my experience was like, it wasn't the best theater experience I had, but yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that he was like sleeping during the movie. I'm like, what is going on? So that was pretty funny.
Right.
But overall, my thoughts on Longlegs is I think it's good. I actually enjoyed it. I think I can see why people. This is one of those movies where I think you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. I don't think there's gonna be no in between with this movie. For me, I really enjoyed it. I think it was super good. I'm a big fan of like The Silence of the Lambs, and I know everyone's making that comparison. And they're two very different movies, but like at the same time, I could see where that comparison is coming from. But for
Right.
me, like this movie, I don't know what it was, but watching this movie made me so uncomfortable, and that's why I think I enjoyed it so much. Because being a horror fan for like almost 20 years, it's one of those things where it's like it's hard for me to get scared or like for a movie to get under my skin. And this one succeeded. There was points in this movie where I was like, yeah, this is very disturbing and making me uncomfortable. And it's mostly because of Nicolas Cage's performance as Longlegs. Like I think
Yeah.
even if someone like hates this movie, I think they're gonna leave the theater or after seeing the movie thinking that Nicolas Cage was great. And he is. He's a great actor. And like every time that he was on screen, I felt so uncomfortable. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. Now, the story is good as well, I think. I think it's just there's times in the movie where I was kind of like, okay, it's dragging a little bit, but it wasn't too long to where I disliked the movie. You know what I mean? I still enjoyed it for what it was. But this was a movie that just left me like with this weird feeling afterwards. Like all day today, I've been thinking about this movie. Like I just can't get it out of my head.
Yeah, it's definitely been on my mind. I think the opening was really scary.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, every time Nicolas Cage was on screen, like that was the best part of the movie easily.
Definitely.
But one of my issues with it is I feel like he was highly underutilized.
Yeah.
The middle part that had him in it a lot was easily the best part of the movie. I was riveted the whole time during that. And I just thought, I think they were going for like a Buffalo Bill type situation.
Oh yeah, where, for sure.
Like he's not in it that long in screen time, but he makes such a big impression on the audience, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is Silence of the Lambs had Anthony Hopkins to anchor the rest of the movie with his great performance. So I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but so after Nicolas Cage is no longer in the movie that much, to me, it just became a huge like anticlimactic letdown after that. I understand what they were going for, but yeah, like when he was on screen, you could not look away. Like he was terrifying to look at. I thought it was an amazing performance, but I just think he was underutilized.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I think they could have definitely used him a lot more because that was one of my complaints when I left the theater. I was like, you know, he's so good in the movie, but it's like I feel like I didn't see him enough. You know what I'm saying? But because it really focuses on the Lee Harker character, you know, the chick that played in It Follows. I forget her name. Wait,
I think it's like something Monroe,
Micah
Monroe.
Yeah, Micah, something like that. Yeah,
something like that.
She was really good as well. But like, I just feel like Nick Cage should have had more screen time. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like this is a almost wannabe Silence of the Lambs, but it falls on its face a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, like I get the connections with Buffalo Bill though, for sure.
Well, it made me think about something that I think a lot about horror, and the studio Neon is especially guilty of this, in my opinion. And it's kind of like A24 ruined horror. Like I love A24. I think they make the best horror movies, but now every other studio feels like they have to be super artsy, super intelligent, super edgy. And at times it felt like Mama Max edited this movie or something. It was overly edgy. I normally like when a movie like splits it up into chapters, but I didn't feel like the chapter breakdown like added anything to the story. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was trying too hard in places, I think.
Yeah.
And it definitely wears its influences on its sleeve. You know, it definitely wants you to think of Silence of the Lambs and other films like that. But in doing that, you're bringing up some of the greatest horror movies ever made. So it's like, it's inevitable that a comparison is going to be made when you wear your influences that openly.
For sure.
So it's not fair to compare it to the other movies, but at the same time, it wants to be compared to other movies. So you almost have to, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that also what hurts it because, you know, The Silence of the Lambs is literally one of the best horror movies ever. So it's like, well, horror thriller. But it's one of those things where it's like when you make your movie feel so much like it and people compare it to that movie, it's obviously not going to compare. You know what I'm saying? Like Longlegs is not even close to Silence of the Lambs when it comes to popularity or even story. Silence of the Lambs is 1,000 times better. So I think that can kind of hurt the movie as well.
It definitely has. You're right about it having a very haunting quality to it, though, because I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Yeah. And it's like part of it is like, I wish they did this differently. But the parts that worked really worked. I will say that about it. Like absolutely. The good parts were really, really good. The scary parts were really scary. I was picturing it like I think the scariest movie of the last however many years was Hereditary. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
movie scared the crap out of me. And I was thinking that this one would do the same, and it just fell short on that account.
See, I agree though. Like it's weird because this movie didn't scare me. You know, it's hard for me to get scared. You know, I've seen so many horror movies that it's like I'm desensitized to almost everything. But it's like
Right.
when a movie can creep me out and get under my skin, like that's a win to me because that's hard to do when you've been a horror fan for so long. And like I don't know what it was about this movie. I don't know if it was just strictly Nick Cage's performance or like how the movie was shot or like whatever it was. Something about this movie just really made me uncomfortable. And I think that's definitely a great thing about the movie because it's hard to do that, especially with a veteran horror fan who's been watching this stuff for years. It's like it's so hard to make that certain person uncomfortable. And I don't know what it was. I really don't. Like I still can't pinpoint what it was. I want to say it was Nick Cage's performance, but then again, I look at the whole movie and just something about it just it's not like the level of like The Exorcist. I don't know how you feel about The Exorcist, but like The Exorcist always leaves me with this weird feeling after watching it. Longlegs kind of did the same thing, but those movies, they're so the feels of these movies are so different. So I don't know what it was with Longlegs, but it just got under my skin.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking about it, I'm sitting there like, oh, I really liked how this worked, but then
Yeah,
I think, oh, I really wish they would have done this. And
yeah,
one example of that is like light spoilers here, but you know the climax scene with her boss and his family.
yeah,
They really like my girlfriend said it felt rushed to her, and I think that was a
yeah,
really good way to put it. That scene could have been really drawn out to like really drag out the tension. Like it could have been an
definitely.
extremely tense scene, and it seemed like they just rushed through it in a very short period of time.
Yeah,
And it's a good movie, but it could have been great. You know, it could have been
yeah.
great, and they just didn't hit it completely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely agree. I think it's good, but I think it had more potential for sure. So I definitely agree with you on that. But
So
I don't know.
the big
Wait, what?
question is, did you like it better than Maxine?
See, I knew that was gonna come up because like I was gonna do an episode over Maxine, but I didn't yet. Honestly, see, it's tough for me. Like Maxine was great. I loved Maxine. I think it was a good ending to that trilogy. I'll probably do an episode over the whole trilogy at some point. But Maxine didn't leave me with this feeling that Longlegs did. But as a movie, I don't know, man. It's so tough because those are the two movies I've been thinking about lately because, they're the most relevant. But if I had to choose right now, dang, I'd probably go with Maxine. And the reason I'd go with Maxine is because I'm a huge Ty West fan. He's actually like one of my favorite directors of all time, actually. So I would
Yeah.
probably go with Maxine. But Longlegs, I think I don't know, man. I'm gonna go with Maxine for sure. What about you? Have you seen Maxine?
No, I haven't
Oh,
yet.
okay, okay, yeah. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
with
I haven't.
Maxine.
But yeah, I agree with you completely. Like yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I think he does great work. I want to see Maxine. I just haven't been able to get there yet to see it. So
Yeah, it's good, man. It's
that's on
really
my
good.
calendar for sure.
Yeah, definitely go see it in the theater if you can, because it's a great conclusion to the trilogy for sure.
Yeah, and that's another thing is I don't go to the theater very often.
Oh,
So
okay.
when I do, I always try to pick like you know how expensive it is these days, and
Oh yeah,
they try to charge us $20 for a pretzel. I was like, you are out of your mind.
$20
But
for a pretzel.
yeah, it's like the
What the
pretzel is
heck?
like a foot. It's a foot long, like it's a huge pretzel, but still $20 for a pretzel is insane.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
so I don't get to go that often. So I pick my movies. You know, like before this, I haven't seen a movie since Oppenheimer, I think,
Oh,
or
okay.
Dune. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I pick which ones, and so yeah, it was a little disappointing. I can't paying the money and going in, but I think once again that was just kind of the unfair hype that I'd placed. But it wasn't just me, because if you read articles about this, everyone is hyping this movie up to the 10th degree. I mean,
oh yeah,
critics, everybody, they're saying it's a masterpiece, and I was like, that's so I was expecting that,
yeah,
and
for
while it's a
sure.
good movie, I don't definitely do not think it's a masterpiece by any means.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't call this movie a masterpiece. Like obviously Signs of the Lambs I would. This I would not. I would call this I think I go a little bit above good. I think it's a great movie, but like you said, there was more potential here. They could have done way better stuff with the story and certain characters, but like overall, I'm pretty happy with it, but there's those little things that I can pick from it, and you pretty much covered that.
Yeah, well, like what I was saying about the tension, like you mentioned Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Like think about the ultimate scene in that where Buffalo Bill has on the night vision goggles and he's reaching
Yeah,
out, touching. That is so tense, and they
it
draw it
is.
out for such a good amount of time. I
Yeah.
just felt like they should have used that, and Longlegs himself would have been better utilized there than the villain they did have there. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
I
saying?
agree. I agree. I think the twist is cool, but they didn't use it right. Like, it's like
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's a cool twist, but there's just something it's almost like you're like excited about the twist, but it's almost like you're also kind of like, well, what about like long legs? And it's like, why would you? I don't know. It's almost kind of a pointless twist to me.
yeah. The twist was good in the sense that I didn't see it coming,
Yeah.
but once again, like the pacing is weird. Like they didn't even introduce that character on screen. You hear
Yeah.
their voice, but you don't see them until shortly before the twist occurs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was odd. Like part of me was like, "Whoa, that's a crazy twist," but at the other, I couldn't help but feel like a sense of disappointment a little bit because it didn't really make that much sense when you really think about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I was iffy on the twist. Like at one part of me was like, "Wow, good twist," and then the rest was, I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, honestly. Have you seen any other Oz Perkins films?
Um, what else has he made?
He's done Hensel and Gretel, I think it
No,
was.
I never saw that one.
I forget what else he did. I think he did what else did he do? I haven't seen a lot from him either. I mean, I like his style. He did the Black
He's
Coat's
not the.
Daughter.
Oh, okay. I have seen that. I thought that was a really good movie.
Yeah, yeah. I like I
Yeah.
said, I haven't seen a lot from him, but I really enjoy his style of like filmmaking. It's really good.
Oh, the aesthetic and the atmos, like all of that was top notch. I loved
Absolutely.
how the movie looked. The cinematography was just fantastic, and I think they could have like gone without the chapter breakdowns because I
I
just feel like if
agree.
you're
It was
yeah, like if you're gonna
pointless.
have chapters, like have them like influence the story, or at least like have the titles make like recognizable sense to what's happening on the screen. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the chapter thing was pointless too, because like every time they pop up, it's like, why is this even here? Because it's like you don't even think about it, and like you said, it really has no meaning with like what's happening during that section of the movie. I mean, the letter thing did, where I forget what it says, something about the letters. Longlegs he
yeah.
had those letters, whatever. Like that one did, but the other two were like, what? It doesn't even. Why is this even in the movie?
And it's kind of a trend I've been noticing in a lot of modern movies to not really have like a story arc anymore.
Yeah.
Like when this was first pitched to me as like, oh, we should see this movie, it
Mhm.
was told like a Silence of the Lambs with a supernatural twist.
Yeah.
And when I found out that the main girl was supposed to be psychic, I assumed like, oh, she would have like little psychic abilities and she'd like struggle with her control over them.
Yeah.
Through that, the psychic abilities didn't really come into play the way that I thought it would, and
Yeah.
the character just overall didn't have any kind of real arc. Like she's the same at the end that she is
I
at the
agree.
beginning.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with a lot of modern films. Like they've forgotten how to do character development or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you because I agree. There should have been some sort of like arc with that character, and there definitely wasn't. So I 100% agree. But overall, like, okay, so here's how I do my ratings. I usually like rate movies out of 5 skulls. So like obviously five being the best, one being the worst. What would you rate this out of 5 skulls?
I would give it a solid 3,
Okay, I think
maybe
I
three and
would.
a half.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'd probably give it a 3.5, at most a 4, probably a 3.5 though, out of 5 skulls. Because
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good, but like there's definitely things that are kind of a letdown with this movie for sure.
Yeah, like it's worth seeing in my opinion just for
Yeah,
Nick Cage's performance. Like
for
for that
sure.
alone, it's worth the money. And the main girl did a great job. Everyone did a great job in the cast. I really liked
Yeah,
everyone, and like you said, it's a really interesting movie to look at. It has a very interesting aesthetic, a haunting aesthetic to
It
it that I
does.
think is pretty unique. So it actually
Yeah.
reminded me weirdly of not a horror movie, but there's a little indie movie called A Ghost Story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a guy that dies and becomes a ghost, and it's symbolized with him just in a bed sheet like a child.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
like there's a really haunting like aspect to that film, and that's what it reminded me of in like vibes as I left. It definitely gave me some like existential dread going on. So I guess
Yeah.
in that sense it was successful, you know.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like that's hard to do with people like us who's been watching horror pretty much their whole lives. So I
Right.
think that's a success. But overall, man, I mean, I like you said, check it out for sure. You know, I was telling my uncle too. You know, you were talking about the whole like just go see it for Nick Cage's performance. I was like telling my uncle like literally if it's horror and Nick Cage, people's gonna go see it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely prefer Mandy to this.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
yeah, quite a lot. But yeah, his performance is brilliant. Like I couldn't legitimately could not tell that it was Nick Cage in a lot of the
Right,
parts. Like
right. It looked really good for sure. The prosthetics were really good on him.
yeah, and he kept the cageisms to a minimum. There wasn't like a lot of his like trademark acting ticks that he does,
Yeah,
which I
for
thought
sure.
was interesting. You know, and he is the character. It's not like, oh look, it's Nick Cage being a serial killer. You're like, oh look, it's Longlegs. You know, he is that
Exactly.
character. So
Yeah, I think that this performance is one of the standouts of his career. Like, I really think that's how good it was. I mean, you know, aside from the movie, like his performance is literally that good.
yeah, just performance wise, it might be the best of his entire. I know that's a crazy claim because he's had a lot of great performances, but
Yeah,
if it's not the best, it's top three easily.
for sure. I agree. But overall, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I feel like we covered a good bit. If you guys like true crime and horror and all that good stuff, definitely go subscribe to Cancel Happiness. Also, go see Longlegs in theaters. And if you're new to my channel, please leave a like and subscribe. That would help me out a ton. And I will hear from you guys very soon.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.